That, was a really intense sequence, very, very low, I don't even know if we can say how low it was. This is really one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked.
Now this I can do.
Yeah, the light cycle sequence for me, it was my first, giant film action sequence, and it was very complicated because if you remember, it was on 3 different levels. So it was kind of like 3-dimensional chess. I remember I had a giant foam core build of the light cycle sequence with, little physical light cycles, and I kind of sat there for hours kind of mapping it out with the storyboard artist. And it was kind of intricately plotted and storyboarded. And I did the same thing. I still do to this day, still storyboard every shot in the film. I think in F1, we did something like 3,500 storyboards. So it's taught me the importance of going in with a plan.
Yeah, now that's what I'm talking about!
I mean, I think the scene, the shot, and it's not a very complicated technical shot, but it's the last shot of the film where Cora comes out to the real world and sees the sunrise for the first time. It was, I think, one of my last days on set. We got up or shot through the night and waited for the sun to come up and actually got that moment in camera. And I think Olivia's performance in that moment really delivers on the promise of the film. That's the shot that springs to mind. I thought she did an incredible job in that moment. I mean, I love sci-fi as a genre just more because of the big ideas that you can tackle. I mean, even on Tron Legacy, we think about it as a CG film, but we built so much practically on that movie. I mean, all those sets, I think it was 12 or 14 giant sets we built. We did the suits that were actually lit practically. So I've always had this interest in trying to get as much in camera as possible, but obviously there's elements of that film that you just can't shoot practically. So it's always been an interest of mine. I just think the stories and the worlds maybe have I've started to kind of dive more into real world scenarios, but I've always had that interest. I love practical filmmaking. Even this film, you say it's all in camera, but the truth is there's a lot of hidden visual effects in this movie. Anytime you see an Apex GP car on the track, with a Ferrari and a Red Bull during a real race, obviously that didn't happen, right? We couldn't actually shoot during a real race. We were shooting at the track on the race weekend, but we could never really put Brad on the track with real Formula One drivers. So the question is, how do you do that? And it required a lot of techniques that blend practical photography and really high quality visual effects. I would say in the weird way, Formula One probably has more visual effects or equal to what Tron Legacy did. It's just a completely different looking movie in a different world. So it's always I feel like I'm always operating in the same world of trying to make it invisible, but for me it's all about story and what's the next story, what's something I'm interested in, what's a world I'd love to live in for, in this case almost 4 years, and it's that new challenge that kind of drives me. Favorite shot in Oblivion? I mean, one that comes to mind on set was, there's a sequence at the beginning where Jack Harper, Tom Cruise, walks from inside the Sky Tower outside onto the platform to get to the bubble ship. And that was the first day that we used our front projection technique, which we weren't sure was going to work. We had put so much time and effort into building this thing. We weren't sure we were going to get the light levels to the point where it was going to register on camera. In the last 2 days, Claudio, my cinematographer, opted to repaint the entire cyc, which is the big screen around the set, a brighter shade of white to get us another third of a stop of light. And he did that, and we turned the projectors on and shot that scene in the morning. And when I saw it on the monitor that it was working, it made me realize that the whole concept was going to work for the film. So it was it's a shot I love because it kicks off the movie, but also kind of behind the camera, it was a day where I could kind of breathe a huge sigh of relief knowing that this whole system was going to work because we'd really kind of bet everything on it.
I can't shake the feeling that Earth, in spite of all that's happened, Earth is still my home.
And the sequence that always sticks out that, you know, is Maverick's where he proves he can fly the low-level course. That, you know, was a really intense sequence, you know, very, very low. You know, I don't even know if we can say how low it was, but was definitely kind of pushing our filmmaking style to the limit. You know, certainly Tom was on the edge, and you know, it kind of reminded me of what we were doing, you know, Brad was doing, you know, on this film as well. It's like in an effort to put something on film that you've never seen before, you know, actors really putting themselves out there, learning something, a new skill, and then pushing it to the limit, you know, so that the audience has that experience, the same experience they're having. Certainly what, you know, Jerry and Tom and Tony created, the story, the characters, the kind of themes were things that carried into Maverick, and we just tried to take it all to the next level. I remember seeing that film, I think I was 11 years old, you know, in the big screen, and you know, his filmmaking style, it transported you to this kind of the Top Gun world where, you know, the sun is always setting, you know, the light's always beautiful. So I wanted Maverick to exist in that same universe, but also bring my own kind of sensibility to it.
Green range is confirmed. I don't see an event scheduled for you, sir.
Well, I'm going anyway.
Nice.
The day that sticks out is our first day at Silverstone, which is the British Grand Prix. You know, we started off that day shooting the national anthem with Brad and Damson standing alongside, you know, Max Verstappen and all the other Formula One drivers in the national anthem, which was the real national anthem. On the broadcast, you know, they made sure they cut out our actors, but our cameras were getting everything. And that was a pretty surreal day because that's where the line between fact and fiction became very blurred. And it kind of continued through the whole making of the film. You know, we were the 11th team on the grid. We had a garage between Ferrari and Mercedes. And that was kind of the feeling I wanted the film to have, where it just feels like you're in the middle of a race. On a movie like F1, you always have to be ready to embrace things going another way. You know, like I'd have a sequence planned for the Hungarian Grand Prix, and then on the first corner during the first race, there was a big accident where 3 cars collided, and it kind of changed all my sequencing of how that sequence was going to go. So I had to change it. But that was the fun, was to take real-world moments and then integrate them into the film. So now, when you watch the film, it feels like Sonny Hayes is in the middle of that pack of cars when all that chaos broke out. And for me, that was the fun challenge of this, was blending real-world events with, you know, our story and making it all work together.
Anything else, Professor?
Drive fast.
How would F1 be different if I never made Top Gun? That would be really hard because, you know, we created a whole new camera system for this film in order to make it possible, and it was developed off the back of the Top Gun Maverick system that we did. So it's really an evolution of that. I don't know if I could have made that leap without having the experience of Top Gun Maverick. So our cameras probably would have been bigger, heavier, bulkier. We wouldn't be able to get the speed, but having all that experience with the camera system, working closely with Sony, we were able to kind of miniaturize it, lighten it, tuck the recorders and the receivers and everything into the car body itself under the radiators, and create a system that has IMAX quality but doesn't slow the car down. So it allows Brad and Damson to maintain that speed, which was so key. Yeah, if Miami Vice is the next one, then yeah, certainly a boat has to be part of it. That's kind of one of the fundamental elements. So yeah, I suppose so. That'll be one of the aspects. I can tell you that I'm really excited to work on it. You know, that for me, again, that age range, you know, 10, 11 years old, 1984 and 1985, I was obsessed with that show. It looked like nothing else on television. You know, what Anthony Yerkovich and Michael Mann created was iconic, and it's a world that I'm very excited to dive into and, you know, figure out what my version would be for the big screen. Dan Gilroy's writing the script, who's an incredible writer, and, you know, I'm just really excited about the potential of it.